Here I present to you the Radeon HD 4850. This card is based on the RV770 architecture, the same as its older brother, the HD 4870. The thing about the 4000 series is that it reached new heights with its release, as variants of the 4850 sported 2GB of GDDR3 VRAM, the first GPU to have ever done so. And the 4870 was the first GPU to utilize GDDR5, which is still the most prevalent type of VRAM to this day, although it is being phased out. Our variant, however, is one of the lower spec models of the 4850, having 512MB of GDDR3 on a 256 memory bus clocked at 993MHz and a core clock of 625MHz. Nonetheless, the results yielded mostly playable FPS throughout our benchmarks. Our test system today is an OEM machine, the Dell XPS 435MT with an i7-920 and 6GB of DDR3, which will be sufficient for the tests that are to be conducted. Before we continue, it needs to be noted that all games today were ran at a 1366x768 resolution, the maximum which this monitor supports. Now, let's carry on and get into the benchmarks. First up in the system was the extremely popular Fortnite. I opted to run this game with all settings as low as possible, as I assumed this decade-old card would have great trouble keeping up with modern gaming. The FPS hovered in an impressive mid-50s for a card of this stature, although the stability of it was debatable. At times, the FPS could maintain in the mid-70s, but it was also prone to stuttering and in some instances, even momentary freezing. The lower resolution assisted the playability of Fortnite of this card a tremendous amount, and I speculate that the card would fare far less well than a 1080p option, or generally just any significantly higher resolutions. Following Fortnite, we have Rocket League, which stuck around in the mid to upper 40s, with no stuttering or further altercations at all. Once again, all settings were as low as possible, and although raising a few might be a possibility, higher resolutions are probably a no-go. One title I knew this card would excel at is Half-Life 2, released in 2004, 4 years before this card was. The game was ran with all settings maxed out and the FPS was never a pain, but would frequently fluctuate throughout the gameplay period. This was due to the optimization and rendering tax of the game, and your FPS was largely dependent on where you looked around on the map, the player position, and the details surrounding areas. Although this may be how many games are optimized, it was particularly noticeable in Half-Life 2. Indoors, the average was in the 240s, and in the outdoors, it was roughly located in the upper 110s. However, this was only for the opening level, and I speculate that further on in gameplay, this FPS would be prone to maybe even significant decreases, but nothing unplayable. Another older title featured along with this card is Borderlands 2, as the FPS was sub 1080p and the game was 6 years old. I decided to run with all settings maxed out without VSync. General gameplay saw an FPS in the mid to lower 40s, while in Abandoned Camp the FPS dropped to the mid 30s. Combat was also affecting the FPS with an average FPS drop of about 8, while in Abandoned Camp, where a larger drop could be expected in larger areas, and may result in hardly playable frame rate later in the game. For the most part though, this should not be a trouble, and the card can run Borderlands 2 smoothly. Although our gaming experiences up until now had been relatively good, GTA V was simply unplayable on this card, even with a resolution just 800 by 600 and all settings as low as possible. The average FPS piddled about in the lower 20s, but drops to lower teens were all but infrequent. Also, stuttering was very common and made the gameplay experience an utter mess. However, this may be due to the drivers that ran this card, as the GPU usage never went above 50%. However, even with the lowest settings, the VRAM limit was exceeded by about 350MB from the measly 512MB that this card was packing. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is up next on the list, which was ran with all settings maxed out without VSync. I was surprised to be able to say that the FPS sustained itself in the upper 50s and lower 60s. Although CSGO is more of a CPU-bound game, decent graphics are necessary for the highest settings and higher resolutions. Overall though, this card ran in CSGO at a playable FPS, and a 1080p resolution would most likely be stable and playable as well. Although this card isn't best suited for modern gaming, its performance isn't bad. This card would be best used in a build focused on older games where it's generally not in a primary computer if your aim is good performance. Also, I have 3 of these cards, so I might attempt a crossfire setup, but currently my available motherboards don't support more than one PCIe slot, so I'll need some adapters. Regardless, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. Also, please subscribe because it helps a lot in video quality and production and also positively affects my day. Finally, leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below, and have a great day. Bye!